As you can see, there's a lot to cover in this project. There are a lot of tracks, and there are a lot of effects as well. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down what Mikko did to the individual drum tracks. So you can get an idea of what the drums sound like to start with, I'm going to play them soloed and then with the other tracks in. As is, the guitars are especially loud in the mix, and the vocals are totally buried. These things, of course, will be balanced out with the dynamic processing. So, the drum sound. To me, it's very natural. It sounds like what drums sound like if you were standing in the room. The bass drum is punchy. The snare sounds full and has a light resonance to it. Notice, Mikko didn't use a bottom snare mic. This usually adds a lot of brightness to the snare sound, and I think he felt he just didn't need it for this particular mix. Next, there's a hi-hat channel. I'm going to skip over the toms because I don't think they're played at all in this song, so all you're hearing is the ambience from the other drums. There are two mono overhead channels panned hard left and right. They mostly capture the cymbals. The two mono room mics, also panned hard left and right, capture a balance of the kit from a distance. And finally, there's a mono room mic. This is a mono capture of the kit from a distance and is mostly used to beef up the sound of the snare. Before I get into the effects, I want to show you all the routing. All of the channels are routed to subgroups. There's a kick subgroup, snare, hi-hat, toms, overhead, and room. And then all of those channels then are routed to a single drum bus. Using subgroups like this allows for quick change to one family of the drums. First, I'm going to break down the bass drum. The song was tracked with 3 bass drum mics, but only one was used in the mix, so I removed the unused tracks. The used mic is the one inside of the kick drum, which captures the punch of the bass drum as well as the low end. Here's what the bass drum sounds like with no processing. It has a punchy sound, but the attack could use some emphasis. The first bit of processing used is the Waves CLA 76 plugin. I'm going to mention right now that throughout this project, Mikko uses a lot of third-party plugins, mostly Waves plugins. You can use built-in plugins to achieve similar results. Most DAWs have an 1176 emulation. For example, in Cubase, it's called Vintage Compressor. See the similarities? So for the 1176 purpose, you just want to use a quick compressor. Mikko's using a slow attack and a fast release with the ratio set to 4:1. This preserves the attack and brings out the sustain. After that, he's applying some EQ. He uses the FabFilter Pro Q here. I've said it many times, but I think it's worth repeating. My opinion is that the more recent version, the Pro Q2, which largely is the same as this version, is the best designed EQ plugin I've ever used, and it's definitely my go-to. But if you don't have it, you can use a built-in paragraphic EQ. So for this EQ treatment, it starts with a low cut at 30 Hz. This gets rid of any sub-bass frequencies that can make a mix sound muddy and also take up a lot of energy in the mix. Following that, there's an 8 decibel boost being applied at 63 Hz to fill out the low end. After that, there are 2 cuts being applied to the mids at 416 and 800 Hz. This gets rid of the boxiness of the sound and makes a fairly substantial difference. Finally, a big high shelf boost is being applied at 1500 Hz. This is where all the attack is, that click that helps the bass drum cut in the mix. I'll add them in a band at a time so you can hear what each is doing. Next up is the snare drum. Again, this is only the top mic. He ditched the bottom mic in part because he wanted to achieve a down-to-earth, realistic sound, to use his words. This is how the drum sounds by itself. The first bit of treatment is some EQ. He shelves out everything below 140 Hz. This leaves more room for the bass drum and the bass guitar. Next, he uses a fairly broad boost at 213 Hz. This gives the snare body and fullness. After that, he applies a series of surgical cuts in the mids at 307, 468, 605, and 920 Hz, all with high Qs, making the cuts very narrow. Finally, he applies a high shelf boost at 5 kHz to provide emphasis to the attack and the snares. As I did with the bass drum, I'll add them in one band at a time so you can hear what each is doing. It definitely provides for a cleaner overall sound. After the EQ, he applies some compression, again using the CLA 76. As with the bass drum, he's using a slow attack and fast release, taking off around 5 decibels in gain reduction with a 4:1 ratio. You'll hear the sound is much bigger with the compression in. Notice, on the toms, he starts with Cubase's stock gate plugin. This is used to effectively mute the tracks while the toms aren't being played, which for this song is the entire time. It's followed with some EQ, which I'll show you really quickly. There's a bump in the lows around 112 Hz with a couple of small cuts in the mids at 293 and 800 Hz. I'm not going to bother playing the tracks because, as I've said, the toms aren't used in the song. So, moving along. At the track level, the overhead tracks don't have any processing applied. Here's what they sound like. Finally, there's a stereo room channel and a mono room channel. Here's how they sound on their own. And Miko's applied some EQ, making low and high cuts at his favorite low and high cut points, which are 111 Hz and 11,111 Hz. And he's put a broad cut in the mids at 600 Hz. This helps clean up the sound of the room mics quite a bit. I'll add the bands in one at a time during playback so you can hear what each is doing. So far, this is how the drums sound. I think it's a great sound. It's punchy, it's clean, and it leaves a lot of room for the guitars, bass guitar, and of course, the ever important vocals. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the processing applied to the drum subgroups and the main drum group channel.